there isn't a safer place to be, really, in my view. So I'm not concerned at all.
Police departments across the country are on alert this weekend after ISIS called for attacks against churches in the U.S. Find out why some folks say they are not worried.
Good morning, mid-Michigan. We have a winter weather advisory for parts of the area, generally north of US 23. We'll explain why, and we'll get your full First 7-day forecast coming up in just a few minutes.
And the greatest gift that Michelle and I have received over the last 8 years has been the honor of serving as your president and first lady.
President Obama and the First Lady make their final Christmas message. We'll tell you some of the things that they are reflecting on this holiday season.
It's one of the most unusual things we've caught on a dash camera.
You better watch out. You better not cry. You better not pout. We're telling you why. It's a rare Santa sighting, and it's all caught on camera. It's time to wake up in Michigan. It is Christmas Day 2016.
Live and local with coverage you can count on. This is WNEM-TV5 Wake Up.
And Merry Christmas to you. Thanks for waking up with us on this Christmas Day. I'm Cameron Ridle. So glad that you are joining us. I'm here with meteorologist Dan Drew in the First 1-5 Weather Center. Merry Christmas, friend.
Merry Christmas to you too, Cameron.
How's the weather looking? I know some people, most people are where they got to be for the day, but there are some people still traveling today on Christmas.
There's no doubt about that. It looks like it's going to be a little bit gray, a little bit gloomy, but we have a white Christmas, so we can't complain, right?
I'm happy.
All right, sounds good. Here's a look at your weather story this morning. And Malikalikimaka, that's the wise way to say Merry Christmas to you if you're in Hawaii, of course, but everybody else not feeling like it's Hawaii here across mid-Michigan, but still actually very warm for this time of year. There's no doubt about that. It's going to be foggy and gray across mid-Michigan today. Just patches of fog, not going to be a blanket fog across all of mid-Michigan. And then we'll actually see a little bit of freezing rain move in tonight over night into the day tomorrow, and that will be ahead of our next system. Now, any rain we will have, we'll manage to change over to all rain by tomorrow morning, so roads could still be a little bit slick, but if you have to head out tomorrow, give yourself a little extra time just in case. Now, because of that freezing rain, we do have winter weather advisory in effect generally north of US 23. So keep that in mind here as we go through the overnight hours into our day tomorrow morning. That's going to run until 7 a.m. tomorrow morning. Again, that rain not going to move in until overnight. So First 1-5 Sky Tracker just showing clouds across mid-Michigan. Not a whole lot going on this morning, and not much is going to change. Temperatures across mid-Michigan in the low to mid-30s across the area. It's 34 right now in Flint, 32 Bay City, 32 as well in Midland. Now, the rest of our day today, gray, gloomy, but temperatures are going to reach into the mid to upper 30s, so it will be relatively warm. We'll talk about the timing of tonight's rain coming up in just a few minutes. Cameron?
All right. Thank you, Dan. We've got breaking news from overnight. A Russian military plane with 92 people on board has crashed into the Black Sea. The plane was on its way to Syria. The flight carrying Russian servicemen and military choir members and the dance team were crashed. They crashed into the southern Russia city of Sochi just after disappearing from radar screens. The plane was carrying 84 passengers and 8 crew members. It is unlikely that there are any survivors. Again, that breaking news, a Russian military plane has crashed into the Black Sea, and at this time, there are no known survivors. Developing this morning, federal officials are calling for state and local law enforcement to stay vigilant this holiday weekend after the Islamic State called for attacks on U.S. churches. This comes just days after a man who allegedly pledged allegiance to ISIS used a truck to barrel through a Berlin Christmas market, killing 12 people and injuring dozens. According to the report earlier this week, members of a pro-ISIS social media group published a link to a website containing the names and addresses of churches in the U.S. and called on supporters to attack them during the holiday season. The Department of Homeland Security, the FBI, and the National Counterterrorism Center issued a joint intelligence bulletin Friday to warn of vigilance against lone wolf attacks.
The most significant threats facing this country today comes from people who are inspired by terrorist ideologies but operate independent of a terrorist organization.
At St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York City, metal barricades are set up and police officers are directing large crowds, which officers say is normal this time of year. Tourists say they're not worried about the threat.
Not that there's not that possibility, I just choose not to concern myself with it.
The bulletin to law enforcement says historically, ISIS lists like naming churches have never resulted in a successful terror attack. The President and the First Lady are wishing everyone a Merry Christmas. The first couple released their annual Christmas address yesterday. It's their final Christmas message while in the White House. This time they took a look back at their first address to the nation.
This is our first Christmas in the White House, and what? Stop. What? You know, what? You've got to stop it. All right? You got to get it together. You're going to have to pull it together, POTUS.
Together, the President and the First Lady also reflected on some of the greatest gifts they've received over the last 8 years.
Together, we fought our way back from the worst recession in 80 years and got unemployment to a 9-year low. We secured health insurance for another 20 million Americans and new protections for folks who already had insurance. We made America more respected around the world.
A little bit, but they're still looking good. The Obamas say our country is stronger and more prosperous than it was when they first got to the White House, and they say they'll be hopeful that they'll build on that progress in the years to come. Well, it is Christmas Day in most parts of the world. At the Vatican, Pope Francis began a busy week by celebrating Midnight Mass. He urged Catholics to acknowledge the birth of Jesus by feeling compassion for children. Coming up in our next half hour, we'll have more on the Pope's Midnight Mass message in the Vatican City and what some of the attendees had to say. This Christmas carolers had a message for one sheriff. Several people saying during a protest outside a Milwaukee jail. The move followed multiple deaths in the facility, including one child. The protest held posters depicting the sheriff, David Clark, as the Grinch. They were hoping the move would lead to better conditions in the jail. In his response, the sheriff suggested the protesters should sing at a homeless shelter or at the VA hospital. Well, dash cam footage is a major asset to both law enforcement and citizens.
Absolutely, but one dash camera picked up something almost unbelievable. It's your morning talker.
While patrolling the rural roads in New Jersey, Santa's sleigh was seen just barely, caught passing over officers in their police cruisers.
Police say the sleigh was flying at very fast and extremely low altitude.
An officer was able to turn on his body camera just in time to see Santa passing again, clocking him at 209 miles an hour.
This is the second year in a row the department has managed to spot Santa.
In a statement, the department says that officers responded to, quote, town-wide reports of low-flying aircraft and suspicious noises on rooftops.
And adults with any further information on the case are asked to keep it to themselves.
Now, the real question here is he in FAA regulation?
I'm sure they in some areas, I know the Canadian Air Force actually escorts him. So that, I would assume, he's in compliance.
Okay, we got to make sure this guy's out there staying safe. We'll do a full inspection later today.
All right.
TV5 News Time is 8:08. Still to come this morning, 4 lives were taken in a Christmas Eve shooting. Find out what investigators know now about this deadly shooting. President-elect Donald Trump's spokesman, Jason Miller, turns down a White House job. We'll tell you the reason why he turned down the job of the communications director. A local restaurant is helping families in need this Christmas. We'll tell you where you can get a hot meal and when.